Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Dexter McLeod, and I am with the Los Angeles South Chamber of Commerce. And thank you again for sharing your afternoon for this most important topic that we are going to be discussing today. We are in line with the mayor of LA and a lot of other organizations that's celebrating or recognizing Muslim American Heritage Month. We are not your average chamber. A couple of things that I just want to express to you all. And that number one is, it's important that we learn how to share space for a common goal. One of the things that I have learned over the years is that institutions tend to categorize us, okay? People tend to divide us. First we categorize whatever religion or race or economic status. We get categorized by institutions, and then people use that to divide us, okay? Human nature is that thread to find the common good in people. And what we do with this organization is called Hope, helping other people every day. We find the common ground in people. We find the love in people. And from that standpoint, we move forward. So that's important that we understand where we are. So this organization is about hope, helping other people every day. And again, I want to thank you all for joining today. We're not your average chamber. We have a faith team. Our director is not able to make it today. I don't believe she's on yet, but our director, Anna Tut, is over our faith team. And we collaborate our teams for the common good of our community and of course our members. Brother Gene, which you'll be hearing from next, is the director of our education team. And he's the one that's organizing and facilitating this program today. So again, thank you all for joining this afternoon. God bless you and enjoy our program. Go ahead, Brother Gene.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is our director, Dexter McLeod. We are very, very excited to join our nation's capital, AKA White House, cities across America, and our own mayor, Karen Bass, who followed Imam Wardeen Muhammad's advice in part, who was the latest expression to invite America to recognize Muslim Heritage Month, along with other individuals who helped make that happen. Muslim Heritage Month grows out of the Islamic faith, which is about 1 billion people currently on the earth right now. So Islam is one of the so-called major ways to believe in the idea of a creator and creation. And in America, it is now considered the second fastest growing religion after Christianity and then Judaism and others. Islam is no stranger to America, in that Islam started with America. If you look up something called the Peace and Friendship Treaty, when the Constitution was designed by the so-called Founding Fathers, the first country to recognize the Constitution of the United States, you would predict would be perhaps a European country, England or France or whatnot. No, absolutely, it was Morocco. The Constitution was a strange something to the world because other countries had monarchs and kings and queens and other systems, and the Constitution was something very, very different in the world. And so in the Library of Congress, you'll see that it was Morocco who first recognized it. It had to do during the holy month of Ramadan at the time. And the Moroccan mayor simply said, well, of course, we recognize your Constitution. When we see your Constitution, we see the Quran, because the Constitution was mostly created by men who were irreligious, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, all of those founding fathers to the person were what you call irreligious They didn't believe in any main theology. They were what's called deists. Okay, they were what's called deists. Many of them were Masons and Shriners. And if you know about that organization, they lean heavily on Quran, and they have Islamic symbols on their hats and fezzes and these types of things. So out of that, we are indebted, our country, to the Peace and Friendship Treaty, because Morocco established that they would protect America. On American soil, we did win against the British, but as America went out into the world to find its place amongst the nations, particularly in the Mediterranean, England was not having that, but England did not want to mess with Morocco. It was the power of the Mediterranean. And if we go to the War of 1812, we have the famous Marine song, from the shores of Montezuma to the halls of Tripoli. That's because it's commemorating that American ships rested and got sustenance in Tripoli to help us preserve the nation. So this is a very, very strong relationship. And then we're going to hear some dialogue about a great deal of people who had been enslaved and brought to the Americas, namely this America where we are, did come from West Africa. And from West Africa, the largest empire there in the 12th century on was an empire called Mali. It was the size of Europe. And Mali boasted a reputation that Imam Gadadu and Imam Ali is going to really inform us of. When I was a young boy, and some of you may remember, excuse the colloquial expression, but I heard when I was a young boy growing up in Los Angeles, Compton, I'm gonna kick your butt all the way back to Timbuktu. We didn't know where that was or what it was about. Okay, but we're gonna find out just how Timbuktu really figures in Mali. And that's going to speak to literacy. We also heard some narratives that went like this. I'm from the field of education. I was the director of racial and human relations for San Unified School District for about 18 years. And part of my charge was to introduce culturally relevant instructional strategies. So we helped demystify West Africa and reminded them that Africans who came here from West Africa were literate. They could read, they could write, and they can do all kinds of things. And again, our two imams are gonna assist us with that, and even to understand how presently Mali has risen up again in view, in the news and world culture, because all of those books and things that they have written are taken out of private collections, taken out of caves and things, hidden from the French when they once dominated that country. And UNESCO is standing in line to get that information and advance us. And finally, I'll say to us that it was President Jimmy Carter who said, and we can start advancing those slides, Dexter, yes. We have 101 inventions, and in Los Angeles 7 years ago, Hillary Clinton opened up this exhibit in one of our museums, and 15,000 people came to see this exhibit, demystifying the Islamic influence on culture. Next slide. And then we have, if you will care to look on YouTube, Dr. Roy Casagrande, who's a Harvard scholar, he actually has introduced to the world how Islam saved Western civilization. There's a long version and a 12-minute version, and that's simply because remembering our history, that the Muslim Moors ruled what we now call Spain for 750 years and did take Europe gave them literacy. That was an illiterate society at the time, and taught them many facets of culture that currently exist today. And then the last slide, or the next to the last slide, we have Lost History, the Enduring Legacy of Muslim Scientists, Thinkers, and Artists by Michael Hamilton Morgan. And again, you'll be able to retrieve these things as we post them on our webpage. And then finally, my last point will be more popularly known in the United States until very recent times. The Face of Islam had mostly been the Nation of Islam under the direction of, we call the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Before that, we did have Noble Drew. Noble Drew Ali. Some people know about him because of many musicians that took on Islamic names. We had Marcus Garvey. Most people don't know that Marcus Garvey was Muslim, but he did not advance his faith. He went through an economic platform. And then we had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that did come to give Blacks in America. Imam Wardi Muhammad said that when enslavement took place of the enslaved, it was the goal of the enslavers to empty the human content out of the mind and being of the enslaved Africans and to replace it with what we might call in modern times a Frankenstein version of their idea of our humanity. And to their surprise, we came out even more human. So here we are today. I'd like to now bring on Imam Abdul Qadir Gadado and Imam Ali to help us introduce the importance of not only Andalusia or now Spain, but again, Mali and Timbuktu. So you're on for about 10 minutes. I'll kind of gauge you on it, but we're interested in hearing what you're going to share with us.
So, Sheikh, I'm gonna defer to you, right? You wanted to,
Okay, so assalamu alaikum. Yes, peace be unto everyone, inshallah. Got a blank screen here. I'm Imam Ali Udimbu from the Malcolm X Islamic Center, Los Angeles, California. I'm honored to be here today to somewhat represent our community here. Thank you, Ajeen and the LA Chamber of Commerce and all the directors there. It's a very important topic here. And so I'm being a student of the Sankore Institute of African Islamic Studies International, which the Sankore comes from, it's in Timbuktu. And so our institute, and we're going to be doing this in tandem, me and Imam Gidadu. So the Sankore Institute of Islamic African Studies International, also known as SIASI, is a nonprofit, non-political educational institution founded for the sole purpose of researching into the educational, political, cultural, and religious heritage of Islamic Africa. The primary area of concern is that part of Black Africa traditionally known as the Bilad Sudan, the land of the Blacks. These lands include all the regions located south of the Sahara Desert, and north of the tropical jungles, between the Atlantic Ocean and the Red Sea. The purpose of the SIASI is to elucidate and evidence the Islamic traditions which were born out of Africa, African nations such as Takrua, Songhai, Mali, Ghana, Kanem, Bornu, Wodai, Portofun, Sokoto, Tego, Messina, and the Mahdist Kingdom of the Nile Valley. And so Timbuktu and Mali, being one of the greatest empires in Africa, African Islamic empires in Africa. One second here. And Timbuktu being one of the most renowned cities of in Mali, which in 1100 the city of Timbuktu was founded by the Tuaregs, also known as the Kelatamashik. And in 1230 to 1240, Sunjata Keita becomes the king of Mali. And in 1307, Mansa Khan Musa became the new ruler of Mali and successfully extended the reach of the state. And in 1324, Mansa Musa brings his state to the attention of the world with his famous pilgrimage to Mecca. He arrives in Cairo with vast quantities of gold and spends lavishly in Egypt, which they say he kind of like upset the economy. He's also known, I believe, as either him or Askia Muhammad Torre, who was known as one of the richest men in the world. I guess you can Google that. And so in 1325, he steps into Timbuktu and was so impressed with the settlement there, he appoints an Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili to design the Sankore, the first Sankore, we call it the Sankore Masjid University Complex, because it was a masjid where people came to worship God, and people came to learn, and it became a university. Sankore also, they built a masjid called the Gingerbread Masjid. In this time frame, Mali reached the height of its success and prosperity. In 1493 to 1528, under the Askia Muhammad Torre, Timbuktu becomes a renowned center of Islamic studies and scholarly pursuits. And so some of my references here, and why is that significant? Because even today, as Islam being the fastest growing way of life or religion in the world, and I believe one of my teachers, Brother Ajin, mentioned 1 billion Muslims, but I always question the census. There's over 2 billion Muslims in the world, and so there's some stats on that also. So it's being one. It's also a known fact that Islam is one of the fastest growing religions in the world, and then as Africans and African Americans, being a part of that, being cut off from their roots, cut off from their language, cut off from their God, cut off from that Islamic way of life, with many of the West Africans, as documented, were enslaved in America. And so just like I saw somebody putting up Said, Omar Said, and we have people like Muhammadu Bilali and Salih Bilali of the Sapelo Islands. And then I heard Ajin mention the War of 1812. And so there was Muslims in America fighting on the side of the Americans, and Muslims fighting on the side of the British. In the war in the War of 1812. And so we have
Please forgive me. I'm gonna have to be the timekeeper. If we're gonna bring Imam Gadado on, we're gonna have to bring your part too to a close.
Yes,
I think we have so much more, but we're gonna give him a chance. Okay.
Yes, sir. No problem. Let's do that.
Okay, thank you so much. Very enriching.
Well, thank you all. Greetings. Assalamu alaikum. And I'm honored to be here. It's kind of my first meeting with you all. We pray that God brings about benefit for all that we say. We're speaking in reference to House Resolution 541, this Muslim Heritage Month that was entered into the Congress, acknowledging Islamic heritage. It's a very significant thing, as was stated previously. I, in line with what Sheikh Ali was saying, is that I actually took a trip in 2019 to Mali. I was in Bamako and in Djenné. I didn't get a chance to go to Timbuktu. It's on my list for next time. But I was able to make some contacts and get a look into the vault of some of the hermetically sealed manuscripts there, and see for myself the erudition and the kind of scholarship that we hear about and we read about in so many different books. So without any delay, let me see if I can maybe share my screen and get that up really quickly. And I didn't do it's not a exhaustive a dissertation here. I'm basically just sharing with you some of the images that I were able to capture. And I think if I do a slideshow here, let me see 1 second.
And I do see your first image. It looks like the masjid there.
Right. This is actually Timbuktu here. But this is actually from a manuscript. So it's not the actual, let me see. How do I do that? Okay, play. Okay. So if you can see that, right, this is the Institute. And people would come from all over the world seeking to be instructors here, but they would discover that they weren't qualified to sit and learn. And so they would come back after having gotten some additional training. So this is one of my teachers. This is my main teacher here, Sheikh Mohammed Sharif. He's pointing out to a place where a masjid is being built there in Bamako. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. And so we're sitting here and I'm learning with him, and I'm receiving some of the spiritual transmission from the ancestors, from the forefathers of our spiritual chain. And he's transferring that to me, just to give you an idea of kind of what we were doing there. There has been a tradition of learning that has established Mali as an epicenter of erudition. Djenné and Timbuktu are two very special cities among others. And so I did go to Sanusi, which is another place. This is Djenné. And so this is the masjid that Mansa Musa built. It is the largest earthen structure in the world. UNESCO has made it one of the sites that is to be preserved annually. They have it in their a list of places around the world that are unique. I took these pictures here. This young man here, I don't know, maybe 7 years old, he took me across the river. I'm sitting on the other side of that boat there, and he's actually pushing me across to get to this masjid place. And this picture down below was while I was on the bus, I just kind of looked out of the window and took a picture of kind of what's going on the ground. But you can see in relation to like the businesses and their buying and selling and the religious structure, there's a contrast there, and it shows kind of the desire or where the heart is connected to in terms of beautification and giving reverence and honor to the visual. Just something that I picked up on. That's me sitting inside. It's a very tranquil place. Here is the vault. This gentleman here is the librarian, and he took me inside. And so in those cases there are just all kinds of different manuscripts that are handwritten, 1,000 years old, some is maybe 2,000. This handwritten Quran here that you're looking at, that I'm seeing on the table. I took a snap of it here just to give a visual of the beautification, right? The handwriting is so beautiful. Let me see if I can make it larger.
While you're doing that, brother,
yes,
of course, we have about 2 more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to keep moving then. So here's a young man. I wanted to capture his smile because, you see the dirt, you see the, what you would call abject poverty, but look at his character. Look at the tranquility in his face, right? So there's an idea of love and a certain, he knows who he is. And so I said, man, hold still for a second. Let me get that smile and take that back to my people, man. And he was so nice, and he followed me around, and I forget his name, but I pray for him every day. So here's me along the way, just capturing some more images. I was visiting some of the scholars there and just, greeting them and getting their blessings to kind of move about. And the children, they all photo, they all wanted to line up to take pictures. And so I would just take their pictures wherever I saw them. This is the hotel here where we stayed, a very nice place.
And we are at that one last minute.
Okay, here we go. And just more images. So lastly here, I'll show you this one, the image to the upper right here. I was gifted this, it's about 300 pages. It's handwritten, it's from 1914. The scholars gave it to me, and it consists of a bunch of prayers and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was a gift that they had me to bring back here to the country. And then lastly here, what I learned is that it's not always about instant gratification, the accumulation of personal possessions, but it's more about having an intact sense of self, being connected to your traditions and culture, and living up to the expectations, in some cases exceeding them as a member of the village. And so this is kind of some of what I brought back. Alhamdulillah.
Well, thank you so much. And we can appreciate it in a very abbreviated sense, thanks to these 2 imams, that they have given us a very deep glimpse into a history that's worth studying really for the rest of our lives. I'd like to bring on now Sister Gail Kennard. And Gail Kennard converted to Islam in 1970. She currently is the Vice President of the LA Cultural Heritage Commission. And she works very hard to increase the number of historic landmarks of Black people in specific, but others as well. And Sister Gail is going to tell us a little bit about herself and the work and her recent reappointment by current Mayor Karen Bass. Gail. met Gail
Thank
Kennard.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Some of you know me as Gail Medune, same person. So thank you. Before I begin, I want to do an acknowledgement. I am in Los Angeles, in the city. I acknowledge that I'm speaking from the traditional and unceded homeland of the Tongva Quiche Gabrielino Nation. I acknowledge them as the first people and stewards of this now area now known as Los Angeles. They were the first inhabitants here, and the descendants of these people still live here today. I think it's important to point out that history because their story has long been buried. Many of us don't know about the original peoples who lived here, in the same way that the Muslim heritage of this land has also been buried. The scholars tell us that the earliest Muslims in the land that we call the United States were enslaved Africans. And on the screen, you see an image of a new building in Charleston, South Carolina. It's the International African American Museum. It just opened last month. And it is built on the waterfront in Charleston Harbor. And it was on the site of a place called Gadsden's Wharf. Gadsden's Wharf. And it's estimated that 40% of the enslaved Africans who made that transatlantic journey, 40% arrived at Gadsden's Wharf. So it was a really significant piece of the history of Muslims in America, because the scholars also tell us that about 30% of those people who came, possibly more, were Africans from the civilizations that you just heard about, from Mali and Songhai. They were descendants of those people who had been Muslims for centuries. Fascinating stories of some of these Muslims who ended up in America. They have names like Yaro Mahmoud, Ayuba Suleiman Diallo, Abdul Rahman Ibrahima. We are very fortunate that they have their own names, and so we can trace their Islamic ancestry. As you know, the vast majority of enslaved Africans were not able to keep their names, nor were they able to practice their religion. Could you go to the next slide, please? There's one exception to this rule, though, and this is a man named Omar ibn Said. Omar ibn Said was from West Africa, and he was Muslim. He arrived here when he was in his 30s. He was a scholar, knew multiple languages. He arrived in Charleston, probably at Gadsden Harbor, in the 1830s. And thankfully, he was able to write his memoir, his autobiography. And he didn't write it in English, he wrote it in Arabic, because he was an Arabic scholar. That manuscript has been preserved and it has been translated. And last year, miraculously, there was an opera that was premiered in Charleston, South Carolina, called Omar. It was the story of his life. And it was written by an African-American musician. Her name is Rion Giddings. You might have heard of her. And Michael Abels. This was last year.
You have 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. That opera called Omar won the Pulitzer Prize this year. So wonderful. So that's the Atlantic side of enslaved Africans. Now I want to turn to the Pacific side of the history. As I said, I'm talking to you from the city of Los Angeles, and I want to read to you from the website of the city of Los Angeles about its history. It says, on September 4th, 1781, a group of settlers consisting of 14 families, numbering 44 individuals, men and women, of Native American, African, and European heritage, journeyed more than 1,000 miles across the desert from present-day northern Mexico and established a community in the area that we now call Los Angeles. the scholars tell us that more than likely, those people of African descent were descendants from the Moors. The Moors were from North Africa, Muslims, who conquered the area that is now known as Spain and were there for over 800 years. They had a whole civilization there, Islamic civilization. And in the late 1400s, they were conquered by Christians and they were expelled. And we know that many of them came to what was then the New World. They came to Mexico, and many of them settled in northern Mexico. They too were not unable to practice their religion. So a lot of that history has been lost. But they were also part of the Muslim heritage. And even though it's been lost, we can claim that the people who started the city of Los Angeles had a Muslim heritage. So I'm going to wrap it up by just talking about the third wave of Muslim heritage here in the United States. It's been mentioned. There were efforts to reconnect formerly enslaved Africans, African Americans, sought out the religion of Islam. They joined in the late 1880s, turn of the century, 1920s, Temple of Moorish Science. The Ahmadiyya movement from India also came to the United States to proselytize and spread Islam among African Americans and others. And of course, the most famous is the Nation of Islam. That heritage is with us today. We see names of people that everyone knows. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, African American who converted to Islam or reverted to Islam because his ancestors were probably African Muslims. Lew Alcindor became Abdul Karim Jabbar. And the most famous person is probably Muhammad Ali. Cassius Clay converts to Islam, becomes Muhammad Ali. And this influence is not exclusive to Muslims. Today in the House of Representatives in Congress, the minority leader of the House of Representatives is a man named African American Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries is not Muslim, but his first name Hakeem is certainly an Islamic name. And today there are at least 3 Muslims in the United States Congress. An African American named Andre Carson, who represents a district in Indiana. Ilham Omar, who's a Somalian immigrant who's Muslim, who represents a district in Minnesota. Rashida Tlaib, who's Palestinian American, who represents a district in Michigan. Muslims are all over the country, and I want to make sure that you understand that the Muslim heritage goes back, predates the establishment of the United States. One final point that's very much misunderstood. Many people believe that the Muslim population in the United States only started in the 1960s, when people immigrated here from Muslim majority countries, Arabs, South Asians, Indians, Pakistanis, Indonesians, Malaysians, because in 1965, there was a change in immigration, so that there was an ability for immigrants to come here who had been barred before. Many people think that that was the first really introduction of Muslims in the United States. As we've heard, this is not true. We were here very, very early on, and our influence continues. So I'll close with that. Thank you.
And right perfectly on time. I've known Sister Gail for many years. It just so happens that we're cousins. And so I'm really proud of the work that you're doing. So we're going to bring on Sister Khalifa Bey. She is a member of the LA South Chamber of Commerce. She is an ambassador. She is the director of the LA South Bureau of Tourism and Trade, of which I'm a member of. She retired with the Bureau of US Patents for many years. So she has a very influential import and export business, and she is just everywhere. Let's bring on Sister Khalifa Bey. She's going to talk about Muslim women in the Nation of Islam.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
And it's so great to have this opportunity to come before you and present my experience as within the culture. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I can trace my family's history here at least 100 years. I grew up historic Central Avenue culture. So growing up Central Avenue culture, women there, we always had a code of conduct. I was always drawn to Betty Shabazz. I was always drawn to Winnie Mandela. I was always drawn to women who had a code of conduct of what women, who women are. And growing up in the Baptist church, we had rules and regulations of behavior. When we were studying the Bible, that's where I first came across the term Muslim. And then I wondered, well, what happened? You know, then it just went totally Christian. But within the culture, it was always about behavior. And what's going on today, as far as certain women are concerned, you would think that we never had any structure. So when Ajeen asked me to present and talk about the lifestyle, because it's a lifestyle that I have found about when I started studying Islam. It's a lifestyle. It's just not something that you practice. That's your way of life. I grew up in the tribe of Alexander women. My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, we've always practiced the tenets of women in the Nation of Islam without knowing that it was a title attached to it. That's just the lifestyle. That's just how we were. So fast forward, moved to Washington, D.C., and when I got in touch with the Moors. So that's kind of what started my journey in Islam. So when I was growing up, my mother would always show me pictures of all types of women. And I don't know, it was the Life magazine or the Ebony magazine, where I believe it was Muhammad Ali's daughters were on the cover, and they were in their hijabs, and it was color, and it just looked so pristine to me. It's the women were just so pure in their appearance and that picture that the magazine portrayed. Fast forward now, I'm raising my grandson. And with everything that's going on, I have to pull him back in to conduct, behavior, because when I was growing up, you just didn't walk out any kind of way. You always covered up. You know, you always knew your role and you always knew your place for protection. So as I was going, as my journey of settling down with the nation, I came across a nation can rise no higher than its women. And the four women that you see, Clara Muhammad, Tainetta Muhammad, Khadija Farrakhan, and Dr. Ava Muhammad, are the women that have been presented to me as what I like to call virtuous women. Next slide. So this is basically just a short experience of what my journey and how I am presenting myself, how I am presenting my grandson in which direction he should go, because
And you have 5 minutes. You're doing quite
okay. Okay. So next slide. Ideology and beliefs. Next slide. Conduct, behavior of Muslim women. Muslim women are modest in dress. They have respect for family and marriage, leadership and empowerment. Next slide. education and personal growth, community involvement and service, spirituality and faith. Next slide. Role models and sisterhood, healthy lifestyle. This is what I grew up on, not knowing there were conduct behavior of Muslim women. Because for me, it's just a lifestyle and how it's natural for me to be able to say, oh, okay, because I've always been looking for people who practice or still who keep the culture as far as women is concerned. Next slide. I picked these out as the tenets, which covers, I believe, all Muslims, belief in Allah and divine incarnation, the Black man as the original man, self-reliance and economic empowerment. Next slide. Separation and nation building, discipline and personal responsibility. These were the tenets that I grew up on, but not knowing it was part of the Islamic culture. It's just, to me, it's just lifestyle. Next slide. Okay, I thought I had an, I guess it's my, same thing. But anyway, my whole journey coming out of Christianity and learning about other religions. I had a grandmother that was a Christian Scientist, and I had a grandmother that was Baptist. So learning about other lifestyles, ideologies has always been a part of who I am. And I just think instead of everyone being the separation, we have to go back to the origin. I have gone back to the origin of where we come from as a people, and looking forward to continuing my journey in the nation and just loving everybody. So that's it.
Well, you have 2 more minutes. This
Oh, I have
is
2 more minutes. Oh, okay, I didn't want to miss the lineup.
Philippa can go on and on and on. Give us another minute or so.
But you know, it's just and I go back to my grandson, and the reason why I call him my man child. As a woman, I don't know how to raise a son. I know that the Nation of Islam does. So we joined Mosque 27, and we're starting our journey, you know, to be able to prepare. I'm preparing him for the next generation. He has to look toward individuals that's going to continue to guide him in the right direction, like I have. If conduct and behavior is paramount to success as we traverse this place called America. But I've also attended, Ajin, the mosque that's right there on Central.
Yes.
And I still call it Santa Barbara, but Central and King, they're different, just like with Baptists and Catholic and whatever, Islam has different, what's the word I'm looking for? Expressions, yeah, expressions within the culture, but to me, the tenets are the same. So I'm looking for tenets, behavior, responsibility, all that is encompassed within Islam, and just growing within the culture. I just love it. So my sister, Sister Muhammad, trust me, I should have had your picture up there because you look just like those women. But no, it's, if people would really get a hold to, it's a lifestyle.
It is.
It is really a lifestyle, and this is closest to the lifestyle I've had growing up, Central Avenue, and that's culture for me. So,
well, thank you very, very much. A perfect introduction to what I'm going to call a tag team, like Imam Gadadu and Imam Ali, because Sister Anisa Muhammad is really going to continue to elaborate more specifically on some aspects. And Sister Nisa Muhammad is currently a member of the LA South Chamber of Commerce. She has an MS degree in public health and human services. She is the newly appointed chair of Charles Drew University alumni. She's the founder of Sisters for Life and a best-selling author for Repair of Black Family anthology. And I asked her to specifically say what she wanted to say, but if she would assist us particularly on the History of Muhammad Speaks newspaper, because in this country, it was the premier alternative news to inform Americans who weren't interested in just the status quo news. In my research, Black, white, Jewish, all kind of people read Muhammad Speaks newspaper, sometimes on the quiet and very, very publicly. There's nobody you can name in the Black community, Jesse Jackson, all of them, that won't tell you Muhammad Speaks newspaper informed them of the news. But Sister Nisa is also going to give her own special message besides what I asked her to speak on. Sister Nisa Muhammad, and she's the proud mother of 5 children?
4 children, 5
4
grands.
children. I gave you one more.
Please don't do that, bruh. I don't think I can make it through the teenage years again. I'm done with that. Of course, that's being said out of love, and I'm joking, really. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I thank this body of knowledgeable scholars for sharing what they did today. I want to thank the CEO of the Los Angeles South Chamber of Commerce and our dear brother Ajin for inviting me to participate in this particular forum. And I really, really, truly appreciate it. As it specifically relates to the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, which is now the Final Call newspaper, I just would like to read point number 12 of what the Muslims believe. But before I recite that, I just want to share part of what I'm going to say is basically, it's personal, because I know what my life was like prior to learning who the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was and is. And it actually changed my life. And once the Black man and woman that lived in North America, when they learned of Islam and learned of who we really are as a people in our connection to the so-called continent of Africa and our original faith, which is Islam, it actually has this metamorphic reaction within us, and it causes us to willingly want to change our lives. So point number 12 of what the Muslim believes state: we believe that Allah God appeared in the person of Master W. Farad Muhammad, July 1930, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. We further believe, and lastly, that Allah is God, and besides him there is no God, and he will bring about a universal government of peace wherein we all can live in peace together. Islam is a religion of love. It is a religion of peace. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad provided the Black man and woman with the knowledge of God, whose proper name is Allah, the knowledge of self as the original people of the planet Earth and of our divine heritage. This is not racism, it's truth. And the knowledge of the enemy of the righteous, which are our former slave masters. We were brought here against our own will, and we were put in bondage for over 400 years. While the shackles and the chains are off, we are still enslaved in our minds because we still want to act other than ourselves. And that's why the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are very, very important. It's just like Sister Khalifa stated, it's a lifestyle. The tenets of our faith transforms our lives. And it starts first in the mind. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that all sickness and disease starts first in the mind. Islam gave us of pure love. It gave us a sense of belonging. It made us know that we, the Black men and women, are, in the divine scheme of things, are God's chosen people. And that is something that you can even find in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, chapter 15, verse 13. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave the Black woman 7 units of profound study: how to keep house, how to rear your children, how to take care of your husband, how to sew, how to cook, and how to act at home, and how to act abroad. These things are not necessarily all physical. The majority of them is mental and spiritual. This wise back to basics methodology brought us out of a backward way of living into the light of the presence of Almighty God Allah. And he left a divinely guided man, the Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is left in his seat until his imminent return. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad through the mouth and spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan helped me to evolve into a better woman, a better wife, a better mother, and a better representation of my divine self. And Brother Adrian, you are an educator. You know how important it is for us to preserve our history. They, meaning the status quo, those that like to call themselves in power.
And you have 4 minutes to tell us about that.
So, you know, though they want to write Elijah out of history, but look in the chat. I left the link on how you can help us to preserve and restore the home of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and because it's being turned into a living museum. Dear brother, this particular video that I'm showing is a proof of what Elijah Muhammad, a legacy that he left for the Black woman. Could you play that video, or do I need to put it up here?
Now, I don't know how that works.
I got it.
It out with Dexter.
I think I figured it out. Hold on 1 second. Can you also?
I think you're on the right track here. Very good.
The things you're about to hear are the powerful inner thoughts going on inside of the mind of a queen. This is the inner symphony of royalty, the epic soundtrack of a queen. I was born a queen. I was raised a queen. I got royalty in my bloodline. I've always been a queen. I'll always be a queen. When I close my eyes and die, I will be a queen. On my headstone, they'll write queen. Every time they mention my name, they will say queen. My legacy is royalty. My obituary will read queen. Every time they mention my name, they will say queen, because I am a queen. Every day that I get up, I say, good morning, queen. When I look in the mirror, I see a queen. When I go to the gym, I work out like a queen. When I eat like a queen. And the stuff I read makes me an even better queen. The stuff I put in my mind is righteous, because all day I am a queen. From sunrise to sundown, from the moment I open my eyes to the moment I close them, I am a queen. I pray, I think, I speak, I walk like a queen. No loss, no setback, no mistake will ever change that. I'm a conqueror, born to succeed, anointed to prosper, blessed and unstoppable. And I will arise out of the ashes, because my God will not fail me, because I am, always have been, and always will be a queen. Greater is she that is in me than she that is in the world. I can do all things, because with God, all things are possible. And I am a queen doing the impossible. Failure is not an option. I refuse to concede, because I am a queen when I bleed. My blood is royalty, and anything that stands in my way, I will go through it, over it, or around it, because I am a queen. Nothing can stop, blessed and unstoppable. I am the undefeated, undisputed, never be mother of civilization. The world says I'm a loser. I get up every day and go to war with that statement. Think I'm lazy, I'm hungrier than ever. Queen mode, conquering all competition. The devil says I have no money. Money comes to me easily, frequently, and abundantly. God's perfect way. World says I'm crazy. World belongs to the bold. They remind me of the losses I've taken. They said I'll never recover. I serve the God of restoration. I'll make a comeback. They say you can't pay your bills with dreams. Success will come off the assembly lines of my mind. They say I have average talent. Hard work and discipline are the greatest equalizer. Why don't you get a 9 to 5, a normal job that pays every week? Because I'm the head and not the tail, above and not below. Looks like your God has forgotten you. My God will never leave me nor forsake me. You really believe all that stuff you're saying? Destiny is obligated by universal law to concede to the demands of unwavering faith, and I believe I am a queen, committed, hungry, dedicated, fearless, bold, never wavering, full of faith, anointed, prosperous, strong, righteous, focused, disciplined, willing to do whatever it takes to be a queen. I will arise one day to make a believer out of all those who doubted me. I will live with no fear. I will boldly attack the things that scare me. They will not stop me on my destiny. No health issues, no job issues, no financial issues, no relationship issues. Nothing shall stand in the way of my divine calling, because I am a queen. I was born a queen, raised a queen, have always been a queen, will always be a queen. My legacy is royalty. When it's all said and done, on my headstone, they'll write, Queen.
Sister Anissa, we thank you so much. And unfortunately, your time is up, but I have to say this as we bring on our next speaker, who's from the community of Imam Warthin Muhammad, who just happens to be the son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he reminded us and said that man means mind and woman means womb of mind. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a book has been written recently about him. We showed it in the beginning. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the man behind the men. He is the only person in Western history in the last 200 years who produced 4 internationally known people: Minister Louis Farrakhan, El-Haj Malik al-Shabazz, and Muhammad Ali, and Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. Imam Warithuddin Muhammad is celebrated throughout the world and internationally for his insight and his journeying into understanding the nature of the human being through Islamic exegesis. Today we have Imam Abdul Rashid Muhammad, who currently is the Imam of Masjid Taqwa in San Diego, California. In that history of the Nation of Islam, San Diego was temple number 8. It was the 8th masjid to be established. Imam Muhammad has a big job as he is continuing to provide the leadership. And with delight, we do report, I am from a family who found service in the United States of America since the Revolutionary War. I have people in every war in the United States, and these were people who tried to find a way to believe that they were preserving freedom in America. I was in the United States Navy. I decided that I could not serve that anymore. I was a special assistant to the Commodore of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, and I asked politely to be excused, and I joined the Nation of Islam in the beginning of my Islamic journey. And we now have sitting before us our Imam, who is the first Muslim chaplain for the Department of Defense for the United States of America. Please, brother, tell us about your journey and your message.
Thank you very much, first of all, Brother Gene, for the invitation here. It appears that I may be the sole person not in Los Angeles today, but I'm so grateful for being a part of this forum. I could actually just continue to listen. I've learned so much in the short period of time, roughly 1 hour and a half or so, no, 1 hour actually, that I just feel so honored to be among such esteemed African-American scholars and practitioners of Islam. I myself originally from the East Coast of the United States. I grew up in the Buffalo, New York area, and I originally came to Southern California back in 1977 to pursue my graduate studies in anthropology. And that was actually the track that actually led me to Islam, was being a student of anthropology. And I started studying anthropology basically from my love for culture and the diversity of culture. And it was the diversity of culture and the expression of how men and women throughout all periods have had some form of worship as a part of their culture. That actually led me, coming up in a family that was Baptist, to learn more about other religions. And of course, back in the late 60s and 70s, like so many of us, the Nation of Islam was a great influence in my life. And I recall it was Brother Malcolm Shabazz was the first one who really got my attention. And then, of course, later on, Muhammad Ali, and as was mentioned earlier, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So it was really, for me personally, a very easy transformation coming from a Southern Baptist family, as many of us did. I had one other brother that was a member of the Nation of Islam. And I can recall as a young boy, him mentioning many things that were very strange and unusual, but at the same time, it got my attention because it was different. And my journey since those early days, as I said, walking through the Nation of Islam and eventually coming to the bright light of Al-Islam through the transformation of the nation of the original Nation of Islam and Imam Debi Deen Muhammad, which I'm so thankful that Allah blessed our people here in America with a leader that was not only wise enough, but also morally courageous enough to stand up for what I think the majority of us believed in. And it was that belief actually that propelled me, that motivated me and inspired me to actually serve in the United States Armed Forces. I am a Vietnam era veteran. I was not in the service during the Vietnam War. I could have been. I wasn't drafted. But I decided to, on my own volition, join the services shortly after I left San Diego back in 1982, and served 3 years and gained a lot of experience, met a lot of Muslims from all over the world, learned a whole lot more about my faith from many Muslims. In fact, I recall one brother who I remember he was in the United States Navy at the time. And he's an imam now in the San Diego area also. And he was one that I actually studied with and I didn't leave the community of Imam Muhammad, but again, I think it was my openness to culture and just seeking the truth that led me to be amongst Muslims from all over the world. And that propelled me, I think, to actually eventually do chaplaincy work, which I started out in the prisons in New York, working with our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated. And then I went from there I was selected to be, as you mentioned, Brother Ajin, to take on the responsibility of being the first imam in the United States Armed Services, which perhaps some other time we can talk more in detail about that experience. It was quite a very, very good experience for me and my whole entire and total life. In fact, to be honest with you, some of the things that I experienced, I'm just starting to realize what they were. I was going through things sometimes so quickly, I didn't have a chance to really realize what was actually happening to my life. But now that I'm retired from the military, I worked for the Veterans Administration for 9 years and retired from there. Now I'm having an opportunity actually to come back to the community and to give back much of what has been given to me. And so I'm very thankful that at this stage of my life, I still have the energy and the passion to work with people. I've always loved working with people. I'm also just one step away from obtaining my doctorate in social work, and those two disciplines of chaplaincy and social work. In fact, my dissertation was on both of those two disciplines. I'm actually working on a couple of projects to bring those disciplines together here in the San Diego community officially. So again, I appreciate the time to at least take another step in being a part of the what do y'all call it, SoCal, of the SoCal community, Southern California, learning all these little expressions, the longer I'm out here, I'm learning all these different things. But most seriously, my brother, anything that we can do in San Diego to broaden the connection, not only with African Americans, but with Muslims and with human beings, because we're all breathing the same air. And we're all basically paying $5 to $6 a gallon for gasoline. There's no separate price of gas for Muslims and a separate price for non-Muslims. Yeah. When we go to the grocery store, we're all paying the same thing for the milk and the bread. So when we look at these commonalities, we should realize that there's a collectiveness that brings us together, whether we like it or not, or whether we're ready to be disciplined enough to work together or not. Thank you very much. Peace be unto you.
Thank you so much. So in summary, and then we're going to go to some time for questions and answers. First of all, let's talk about San Diego. I am in San Diego, originally from LA. Gail Kennard Banyud was in San Diego. Imam Ali was in San Diego. So San Diego is a sister city to Los Angeles. Yeah. In the LA South Chamber of Commerce, they have been gracious enough to add San Diego to the growing leadership of the Los Angeles South community. But I want to say in summary, first of all, I want to start with Sister Nisa. You tore me up with that video. The tears was coming to my eyes. Okay, and I just have to say, and I want to start off, my queen, Sister Jamila Mahasa Shaheed, that I've been married to for 53 years.
Woo!
Yeah, 53 years. We came into Islam together in the nation. Okay, we have 5 children, 16 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren, and we have bought them all, and all of them are Muslim. All of them are Muslim. We've been able to maintain that, and then we come from families that have contributed to the common good of society, along with Christians, Jews, and others. The next thing I want to remind us, in summary, that we heard from our 2 imams, Timbuktu is not kick your butt all the way back to Timbuktu. Timbuktu has the status of the only city in human history that derived its commerce and the sale of books, writing, and dissemination of books. Nobody has that status but Timbuktu, West Africa, and Mali, changing the narrative that Africans were illiterate. We happen to be among the most literate people in the history of the world through that phase. And then I want to remind you that Masakan Khan Musa was not one of he was the richest man in the history of the world, according, go on Wikipedia, but he had a brother named Abu Bakari, and Abu Bakari came to this part of the world with 2,000 ships documented in native traditions and whatnot, and they did not come back to West Africa. So when you go to Brazil and see those 80 million, Africans in Brazil, and when you see the Muslims, even before enslavement, actually, Christopher Columbus's son, in his diaries, he reports that when his father came here, he saw Muslims, he saw masjids, he saw people believing. And to make the story short, it's a little joke. Man, we thought we got rid of them Muslims out of Spain and came over here, and they still here. Okay, so they just could not get away from the Islamic influence. And there are many documentaries on that. The next thing I want to share with you is that we have, again, a large community of Muslims growing in the Americas, joining other right-minded communities to offer what Imam Wardi Muhammad once offered. He said that Islam was an alternative community for Americans to look at as they look at their futures. And we have to remember now that in Christianity, the main featured person in Christianity is Isa ben Miriam. His Greek name is Jesus. His real name and Aramaic name, because he spoke in Aramaic, was Isa ben Miriam. And you have to remember that for the communities of Christians and Jews, that Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Isa ben Miriam, nicknamed Jesus, are cousins. They are cousins. They're descended from Abraham, and Moses. So we are all sister or brother face, Muslim, Christians, and Jews in particular. But the Quran has invited us, and quote unquote, I have made you tribes so that you would come to know one another, not that you would despise one another. If I had wanted you to be one, I would have made you one. So let us be in a race of righteous competition amongst the various expressions of Muslim communities, amongst the various expressions of Christian, Judaic, and other communities throughout the world. And the Quran says there will be Christians, Muslims, and Jews till the end of time specifically. So we are tied together in this race. So we thank you so much for your listening time and pleasure. We did a lot in a short period of time. We have a little remaining time here, about 15 minutes. Any questions from anybody about anything that was said? This will be on Facebook, so we will be able to retrieve this and pull this up. The LA South Chamber of Commerce, of which I am the Director of Education, I'm also an ambassador for the Chamber. This will be part of our archived webinars, and so we'll be able to pull this up and you can show it to your various communities pretty much anytime you want. Somebody help me now. Yes, brother, go ahead.
Yes, if I may, brother, Brother Ajeen. Yes, I wanted to mention that I had the privilege when I was on active duty and stationed in Germany. I went to Mali, was invited to Mali with 2 other chaplains, and we had the privilege of being there on a religious engagement mission, where we had the opportunity to sit with the Tijani tribe or group in Mali. We met with Protestant ministers and a couple of Catholic priests there. And we were looking for ways, they were interested in knowing how our chaplaincy helps to be a buffer when there are conflicts, when there are national, international conflicts. How does our chaplaincy work or function within our military to serve as a source of peace and comfort? And so we had an opportunity. Actually, I actually gave a couple of presentations on the Nation of Islam. They had never heard anything about the Nation of Islam before. Now they know about Muhammad Ali. If you mention Muhammad Ali's name anywhere in the world, people know Muhammad Ali. But what they don't know is the backstory. They don't know about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They don't know about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. They don't know this story. And somehow we have to find a way to build a bridge where we could, those of us from this part of the world who are the descendants of those who are still in Africa, we have to somehow find a way to tell this story. Because one of the things that the slave masters have been very successful at doing and not giving us the opportunity to share our stories.
Right.
This is a big gap. And I'll tell you something, when I was in Jenne and also Mupti, I never was treated with such hospitality in my entire life. It brought me to tears.
Mm.
The people surrounded me in the masjid and they treated me like royalty.
Mm.
Not because I was an American, not because I was a chaplain, but because I come from African heritage. And they looked at me, and one brother told me, he said, "You are Fulani."
Mm.
No doubt about it in my mind. I know that you are Fulani. And it was one of the most enlightening experiences that I've ever had to this very day. I still have some photos in my archives. At some point, I'll share those with you.
Well, thank you so much. And by the way, I did my DNA and I am a 4% Malian. Okay. So somebody pray for me to be Muslim. Imam Ali, you have something that you want to share?
Yes, sir. One of the things that I will be remiss to mention is that in the historical narratives about Timbuktu is that it is a city or a village or town that never before was there worship anything other than any creator other than Allah Ta'ala. No idols will ever worship in that city. And the main thing, one of the main premises of that educational program is teaching that La ilaha illallah wa Muhammadur Rasulullah, which means there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah, the one God, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, is the final and messenger and seal of the prophets. And so that was the premise for that whole educational institution. And so it was a miraculous thing that no idols will ever worship in Timbuktu. There's no God except Allah. He has no partners. There's nothing comparable to him. And along with our Imam from San Diego, I appreciate you sharing about Mufti and Djenne. And so these are some of the places that me and Imam Gidado have visited. I actually purchased land in Mali. We have a masjid going up right now in right out of Bamako. It's a place called Warala, the Lion Territory. We have a masjid of Sheikh Umar Fodio going up right now. A free clinic. We have 2 wells there. And so we're doing some ongoing work there right now. And so I put on here the SIISASI, the Siasi, which siasi.org. I put that website on there if you want to go to that website, see some of the things, some of the manuscripts that we've been translating over the last since 1985. We've been gathering manuscripts from all over Africa, especially African scholars. And so those manuscripts have been, a lot of them been translated, over 100 of them been translated in English and French and Spanish, and they're free online to get information for our liberation. And so I appreciate that. I just wanted to get that in. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. I got to meet you, man. I got to come to San Diego and meet that man right there.
You're
Oh,
welcome.
yeah.
Anytime,
Yeah,
anytime.
we're gonna do all of that. We're gonna go on to the next question, and as an introduction to that next question, all praise is due to the leadership of Prophet Abraham alayhi salam, who got us away from idol gods and idol worship, and he is the progenitor of both Esau, Jesus, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thanks to Abraham, he gave us Esau, Jesus, he gave us Muhammad, and the beat goes on. Anybody else that has a statement or question? I was able to see Ma'am Ali's hand raised if you push that little button. Let's do a pop-up. If you have a statement or question, just go ahead and pop up and do it. I can't quite see.
I just wanted to offer my sincere gratitude to you for the invitation and to all of you here. It was a very, very timely exercise of trying to be quick on the fly and putting something together and still trying to make it coherent. So I hope that it was received. May God bless you all and increase you and continue to guide you on your journey. So I just wanted to offer that my sincere, and thank you to the chamber as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, let's just say a little bit more. I mean, we do have about 9 minutes here. I think it's important to also remember, because we are in the state of California, in what we now call Spain, that once was known as Andalusia. In the year 1510, Garcia de Montalvo wrote a book called The Deeds of Esplainan, and Hernando Cortez read that, so he came to this part of the world looking for a Black queen, Anisa Muhammad, named Queen Calafia from Caliphate. He believed that she was here. He came looking for her. The story was that it was an island of Black women. They were Amazons. They weren't too big on the men at the time. And the story was they had these birds called griffins that when the men came and gave them the children they wanted, they dropped the men into the ocean and continued to advance their society, the mythical society. And so he came and he was on the peninsula of Baja California. So he thought this was the Queen Calafia. So this state, and if you go as I did to the Mark Hopkins Hotel in San Francisco, there's a room called the Room of the Dawns, and they have 9-foot murals depicting in 1926, the mayor of San Francisco commissioned the top artists of America to come and paint depictions of Queen Calafia, and she is Black with an afro, okay, as are all the other women. So she is decidedly African in appearance. There's no mistake about it. So as Sister Gail reminded us, that the original founders of Los Angeles in part came from Islamic background. So it is very, very important that we continue. And someone mentioned I am from the field of education. And I advocated when I was in Senate Unified School District. I was over the Racial and Human Relations program. And we made sure that people would understand the rich cultural heritage beyond enslavement that Africans have brought to the Americas. I'll give you a little hint about the African presence in the Americas before enslavement. Look at the word Tallahassee, Florida. ALLAH, in there big as day. Okay.
LASCC, huh?
Yes, there are many scholars that have done research on Native Americans. On the Navajo tribe, they dug down 6 layers down and found Qurans, okay, and Arabic writing in the Navajo Nation. I once wrote an article for the Phoenix Sun-Times, and I'll end on this story for me. On a mountain or a hill somewhere there in Arizona, there was a writing inscribed on the side of the mountain. You can't miss it. And for years, they just thought it was some lost dialect of so-called Native Americans, okay? Until the student who was an immigrant came in medical school and said, oh, why does that say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah? It had been there since the 8th century. Since the 8th century. So we have to be careful about people's narratives, okay? Yes, Muslims came through enslavement, but we were also here. That's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we come from the Aboriginal people. We were here before everybody, okay? Quiet is kept, but joined by other cultures, such as what we now call Native Americans, et cetera, et cetera. So we have still about 5 minutes. Does anybody have any inspiration to say something else? We want to take advantage of every minute here.
I just
If
want
not, I'm gonna ask, I'm sorry, do we have someone? Yeah,
I was
ma'am,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, Sister Gail mentioned Umar ibn Said, and I posted the link of the translation of his biography to the website in the chat. So whoever's interested to read further, Bismillah, feel free to go ahead and take advantage of that, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kennedy, are you still on? Richard Kennedy?
Yes, I am.
I want to call on you. Mr. Kennedy is a central figure and he helped the founding of the LA South Chamber of Commerce. We have a little running joke. I went to Centennial High School in Los Angeles, Compton, and he went to Verbum Day.
Oh,
And he
Lord.
thinks Verbum Day was the best school, and I think Centennial was the best school. Okay, but he is very, very knowledgeable. And can you just remind us of the scope and sequence of our Los Angeles South Chamber of Commerce as you see it, to embrace something like this, to have a faith committee? I don't know too many chambers that have faith committees, but just give us some closing remarks on our famous LA South Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brother Gene. And just before I embark upon that assignment, Verbum Day is number one. I just got through looking at a documentary film made about the life of Raymond Lewis right before I got on this call. So that was a very timely call. Yeah, we first of all want to welcome each of you all to this platform. Those that are listening, I'm sure you gleaned a lot of great information here. We're thankful for all the speakers who were able to participate. A lot of good, rich information. LA South Chamber of Commerce, we're made up of about 400 businesses. We're just going into our 8th year. So we're very excited about our growth. And when we came up with the idea of a faith-based team as a part of the chamber, we thought it was only natural because a lot of our members are made up of Christians. We have a few of the Jewish faith, and then we have members of our chamber who are of the Muslim faith. So we thought it was only a natural thing to do is to bring each of the entities together, because everything in our lives is based upon our deep faith and our convictions. Let me just say, I did have the opportunity to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1973 in Chicago, Illinois, as a part of Savior's Day. After a couple of years at Claremont Colleges, about 7 of us were asked to leave. We were radicals on campus. Some went to Morehouse. Me and one of my buddies, we went to East Palo Alto, California. I studied there at Nairobi College, and I was a part of that Nairobi College community, which was a Pan-Africanist colony back in the early 70s. And eventually I finished up my career at Antioch. But I'm very appreciative of the work that the Muslim community has made to life in America, and especially to our Black community. So we're very appreciative of that. We share Timbuktu, because those who are of knowledge in the Christian community, a lot of people consider Jerusalem as the center of Christianity, but if you're well-read, you recognize that Timbuktu is considered the center of Christians by well-respected and well-known scholars in the Christian faith. There's a large community of Christians, and I heard Brother Abdul Rashid Muhammad talk about his adventures with the State Department to Mali. And our prayer is that we get that situation resolved. I think it's a tragedy, and hey, everybody should live in peace. But at the same time, we recognize, hey, just like we have a venture off with white evangelical Christians that were actually introduced to Christianity by Black people, but at the same time, when we were stolen, that's why they didn't want us to learn how to read once we got to America, because we would have known of our actual history. So I could go on and on, but at the same time, as Ajin stated, we are cousins. So we welcome each of you here to the platform. And that's all I got for right now, Ajin. So, hey.
Well, thank you very much. And I knew I could count on Rick to bring it on
I'd
home.
like to
So
add
it is-
something.
It is an open invitation for all of you to consider joining the LA South Chamber of Commerce. We'll be happy to service you on that in the future. We have one more question. We only got about 2 minutes left.
Yes.
Go ahead and speak.
This is Phyllis. Oh, I appreciate this conversation because I'm learning, and I really love hearing your stories to add to my knowledge. As you know, I worked on my doctorate since 2012, and I learned so much about Indonesia just based on a conference. One of the speakers introduced himself. He said, "My name is Muhammad Ali." And my eyes opened, and I started doing the research and learned that Muhammad Ali had a major fight in Indonesia, and he was welcomed warmly and thought very highly of. So that's one tidbit. The other tidbit is the fact that my religion is different, but the Pope recently visited Sudan, and there was a major turnout of the faithful to respect and honor his visit. But I think it was reaching out ecumenically across the board. So all of us have gone through changes. And again, I appreciate your time to help teach me more about the importance of humankind and mankind. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And thank you. So I'll close with the piece.
Hey, Brother Ajin, if I could get one quick question in. This
Go
is
ahead,
to
brother.
Sister Anissa.
Go ahead.
Good to see you, Sister Anissa, representing LA South Chamber of Commerce. Hey,
How are you,
in
Richard?
reference to the home, I guess you're speaking of Elijah Muhammad's home in Oak Park, correct?
And it's in Hyde Park. Yes,
Yeah,
I am.
yeah. I thought that was already a historical monument, but it's not as of yet.
The place is historic. At the moment, it is being renovated so that it can become a living museum.
Ah,
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of the rooms have been restored. I went on tour there in February when I went to Chicago to Savior's Day. And the energy that's in that house is unprecedented and it's very real. And she wants to turn it into a museum with the, what do you call that? Holograms and different things like that, where you can go into the dining room where the actual table will be. And you will have images in the form of holograms actually coming some kind of high-tech way. I'm not a technology person, but you're going to be able to see the messenger of Allah there in a hologram type of a form. There's a archival place. There's going to be on the second floor, there are going to be rooms for dedicated to the mothers of the faithful. Mother Tynetta, Sister Ava will have her place there. Mother Clara will have a place there. And it's the way that it's laid out is gonna be beautiful. That home, the most attractive part to me is the cracked Adam statue that's on the outside of the building.
Right.
And it's in the yard, and it's got people from the diaspora going around in Adam. And that Adam is cracked, and that cracked Adam represents the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of God coming through us as a people. All of us, our experiences here in North America, and those that traveled from Africa over here and became slaves. It is an amazing place. Check the chat. You'll be able to contribute to this. You can donate, you can purchase items, and all the proceeds go to making sure that this home is renovated. You can go to www.sajda, that's spelled SAJDAHHOUSE.com. And it has all of the ways that you can donate, provide sponsorships, or purchase an Elijah coin, which is a copper coin, 100% copper, made from the copper that was in that house, specifically for the purposes of raising money to make sure that that home is restored. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. It is with regret that I have to give my final closing statement. So we've shared a lot. We've interacted with one another. We've learned of various communities that make up the Islamic world, particularly those that assist us here in America. And it just furthers and deepens our understanding. I do want to say, since Richard brought it up and Sister Nisa, I did have the pleasure of staying with Jabir Muhammad, Honorable Elijah Muhammad's son, for about 2 weeks. He took me into that mansion, and I had a chance to go into that mansion. So I'm very, very happy. And then when I worked with Muhammad Ali, we were once business partners, and we did some traveling together. And I had a chance again to come back and visit the historic Chicago community. So I'm excited to be a part of the preservation of that. So thank you very, very
Well, I
much
hope
again.
and pray that that means that because you've been in that house, you understand the significance. You are a historian, you are an educator. So I am looking forward to seeing your name as somebody that contributed some kind of way to make sure that that renovation takes place. In advance, I thank you, brother. And yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Thank you.
Hey, I don't mind being put on the spot. Okay, so good night to everyone. Again, remember, we're going to make this available so that we can watch this and think about this. And thank you, LA South Chamber of Commerce. There is no commerce like it anywhere in the country for Black folks. And thank you for its leadership, Dexter, Mr. Kennedy, and everybody else. And please come and at least participate in our programs. And we would love for you to join us. Thank you very much.